Again, I'll say welcome to the session on sales and operation planning, in short called S&OP, sometimes called aggregate planning also. This concept started in 1980, and the purpose was to manage the problems caused by overproduction, underproduction. People used to grumble around since I've seen those days. Manufacturing people will complain about the sales and marketing people that the plans are poor, they are changing too frequently. Then the other side, the marketing people will complain about the production people that these guys don't produce and we lose the clients around. So that problem has been going on for ages, and that's how this S&OP came. So what we plan to cover up is today, what is S&OP? Why S&OP? So some flavor you got it from the example I gave it to you. When do we need it? And how we implement. So these are the four broad pillars I'll try to cover around. So let me walk through the next one. What is the program you're going to cover? So what is S&OP? Overview of demand, demand planning, and demand management also. So, and then also we'll try to talk about the quiz and question answers. Let's see what is S&OP. So when we say S&OP, the sales and operation planning, in short called S&OP, as I said to you in the beginning, is an integrated plan. Most of the company which I have seen around in India is a monthly process. And this is used mostly by the way it started historically by manufacturing company. But now I can see with many big companies who are dealing with services, they are also planning to use it. When it comes to planning of the resources, when it comes to optimizing the resources, this concept can be used for services as well. So it's reviewed by the management at the senior level and at the aggregate level. Reconciles the demand and supply plans at detail and aggregate level and linked to the operating plans. So it could be the planning horizons could be 18 months. And during that 18 months, we plan the resources part, execute the business plan and strategy as well. Now, broadly, if I talk about the understanding of S&OP, the common practice, which I know many people, when I ask around, what is S? They say, ask the salespeople, how much we are going to sell? When we talk about and, they say, guys, just integrate with the supply. Very basic answer, which is nothing wrong. So S means deal with the S, sales and marketing, and mean integrate with the supply, and OP means manufacturing plans around. But as a whole, if you look around, the world is moving toward the market-driven focus. And SOP also deals with that around. So when I say of S, when I try to look around, who are my market drivers? How do I shape my demand? Can I change the packaging? Can I change the look of it? Can I change the features of it? So that my demand is going up, not going down. When it comes to integrations, we try to look integration as a value chain, not just the supply chain. And in this value chain, we try to look around the trade-off. Obviously, there are risks. If my marketing people have given me the plan, and I plan my production according to that, and later on they come to me, sorry guys, we are not getting this production, this client has left us. I've already laid down the resources. That means there's a risk of overproduction. Overproduction means obsolescence. Higher inventory, they're all my risk. So that means I have to orchestrate the demand around. So it should not be left only for the production. That means demand also has to be orchestrated. So the B2B demand, the B2B marketing part can also be to some extent automated. So when it comes to the manufacturing plan, the new concept which is today's talked about, market driven, you find the trade-off between the make, source and deliver. Broadly, I would say, if in one line, if I had to say, it is nothing but the balancing of demand supply. I know it's $1 million question. People have been struggling on it. Everybody's trying to improve the accuracy of matching. So if demand is more, supply is less, you know the problems. If supply is more, then demand is less, then there's overproduction, then you know the consequences around. So in short, when I talk about demand, we're talking about the demand forecast, Now, how the forecast, I come from that timings when people used to check, oh, last year demand was so much, just add 10%. Or they will give you the forecast, what the CEO has said, oh, last year we did around 200 crore, this year we'll do 250 crore. So they work backward and they give you the forecast. And then the plus actual orders. So they have in their own kitty the actual orders and the forecast. That is what my demand is. Supply. Obviously, the supply has to come from inventory, has to come from the supply orders, and has to come from the resources. If I've got less resources, I add the resources. If I've got less capacity in terms of machining or this, I add more machining or I subcontract them. So this is how it's basically the balancing of demand and supply. Broadly, if I talk about the aim of S&OP, is to create a consistent operation plan. So when we're trying to create a consistent plan, the way it used to be in 70s and 80s, I've seen in the beginning, even still now, many companies, if you look at this picture, you will find everybody is making their own plan. Plans are being made. I'm not questioning it. The sales will sell so much, around 200 units. Marketing says something. During the campaign, we'll sell 400 units. Production says we'll make only this much, 150 units. Finance says my budget quantity is 300 units. Everybody has got their own, but nothing is aligned to the corporate level business plan. So what we are doing in S&OP, we are basically putting them together. I had a chance to go and do one consulting for one of the companies on the S&OP. First question I asked them, what is S&OP? They say it means only meeting. In a very simple word. To me, it is not the meeting, it's a process. Even it's not a technology. I know there are many software available. To me, the way I look around, it is a process. So this is where I want, although we are putting them together, we are putting all the stakeholders together, share their plan, and come with a comprehensive aggregate plan. So it's a process. That's what I want to emphasize on that. Look around the way it used to be in 70s, 80s. Even some still companies are following that. Everybody has their financial plan, sales plan. Everybody wants to show a rosy picture. But the reality is driven by the market. I think these concepts are working very well. Let me make very clear. If I talk about India, when there was few manufacturers, there was always a shortage. The demand was always more. If you think about those good old days, when one car manufacturer, one color, one telephone companies, few company making refrigerators, few making the washing machines, any plan will do. Anything you make will used to follow the push concept. That means somebody, sales guy, makes a big plan. Production people are working hard and try to cope up with the push. But today the choices are much more. Product life is very short around. So in those situations, you need to integrate them around. So this is where you need to bring them together. This is what S&OP has done. So this tries to bring them together. Those who are working in monopoly situation, let me make very clear, this may not be relevant for them. They'll say, why should I bother? Whatever I make, I sell. Now, aggregation of the plan, if you look around, the broad pillars, if you look, the demand is the starting point. The game starts from the day. It's a game. Now, the game is starting from the demand. So sales and marketing people, downstream channel partners are there. I have passed the demand. Then demand forecast has gone. Supplies, the people are giving their own logistics, constraint, upstream, downstream suppliers, whether they can work or not. We try to come up. Then finance comes with their own guys. My budget is so much and I have to make so much of profit. I might be having 100 products around, 100 families of products around. Some product gives me less profit, some gives me more profit, some I've got problems. So the finance comes to me, guys, this is what we have to do. Now you try to find a mix of it. My profit, the bottom line has to improve. And then the whole concept, whatever we come up around, it has to match with, align with the strategy of the management. The senior leadership at the director level, the CEO level, they have made their own strategy. The demand plan, which I'm working around, integrated plan, aggregated plan, is it matching? Is it aligned to the strategies around? If the top senior management say, guys, we have to move more into infrastructure, we have to move more into the auto sector, We have to move more into the telecom sector. So we have to see how my aggregate plans are there. So it's basically aggregations of various plans. This is what S&OP does around. I think this, I said in the beginning also, sounds familiar to all of you. Manufacturing complain that sales overstates demand, and then they blame us for too much inventory. The poor guy who's heading the production as a manager, the guy is always blamed, guy, oh, you're carrying too much inventory. Sales team complain when manufacturing can't deliver. They say, guys, you are hurting my sale. You're hurting the bottom line. And same problem happen with manufacturing complaints. Does not let them when new product introduction should be scheduled. They will never tell you when the new product is going to come up. Last minute say, guys, oh, now this is the right time to launch it. Production people are not ready for that. So these words, I'm sure you're all conversant. If that type of situation is happening around, it's the right time to implement S&OP. So this is where, when it comes to the question of when to implement, where I was doing the consulting, I said, tell me how much is the accuracy of your plans. Error was 30 to 40%. So if your accuracy is hardly anything, 30-40% error, poor production people have to bear the blunt of all the changes around. So shortly, I mean, obviously the company is not doing effective S&OP. So this is the time that you better implement S&OP. Let's start understanding the various terms around. Starting game is all about demand. I'm not starting with the supply, I'm starting with the demand, because the company or any organization, any entrepreneur works with the demand first. So demand is the total number of requests for a resource. The resource could be for consultant, the resource could be the production, I need so much tons of this. It could be anything around. So demand management is all about making the choice. I got the resources. I got the requests around, 100 of requests around. But I have got limitation, I have got constraints. Something has to be done early, because that could have a multiplying effect to improve my business. Others, I can delay it. I won't still lose the client. So that means making the choices which path to follow. And normally the demand management horizon is very short. Well, when we are doing the plan, the horizon could be 18 months. Could be even less or more. I leave it to it depends on the sectors. Similarly, when I said to you in the beginning, the meetings are supposed to be monthly of S&OP on an average, generally. But if your products are very volatile, it's changing too frequently, the life cycle of the product itself is only 6 months. To me, even 1 month is too high. You may have to do it a shorter span around. So the word request is nothing but asking for something, either politely or formally, guys, we need this much of this. So those requests which I get is demand. Management is all about making the choices, and planning refers to forecasting product and services. Now the demand process, if you look around, starts from planning. What should we do to shape and create demand for us? I got all the sales forecast. So sales people have given me all the forecasts. I'm sitting in marketing. I'm trying to do my demand planning. I've already committed to my big bosses. This is what I'm going to do. Product and packaging. How should I change the packaging if that helps me? Should I change the product look and this? Should I add some features around? Should I make some promotions? Give something on discounted price? Change the price? Change the place? If I'm selling in X country and I'm not getting business, can I change to another country? So whatever you feel around to create the demand around. But don't forget, the demand planning comes from the forecasting part. So that what should we expect demand to be given, the demand plan in place. So I've done the demand plan, is a more a paperwork. Now question comes in place. Statistical forecast, tactical forecast, operational, internal, external factors, all which counts around to make your forecast up and down. Sometimes they're unbiased, unconstrained, many factors comes around. And lastly comes the management, demand management. So you start with the plan, then from plan you say, guys, demand forecasting, what should we do? Expect demand to be given, a demand plan in place. Then question come of priorities. You're balancing demand supply, then you've got S&OP, and you're bridging the both sides of the firm around. So this is the broad process I would call around. And keep in mind when we're doing the data analysis and S&OP, you're not looking at a micro SKU level. How many nuts of this, how many bolts of this? No. You're doing at a product group level. I've got hundreds of products around in a big companies. So I go with the product group itself, our product subgroup, or the brand, or the model. So at that level, we do the S&OP level. Not going at the color of this one around, how many are white, how many are left, this one, or SKU level, no. So it's not going to the lowest level of SKU. It remains at, keep in mind, at the group and subgroup and the model level. Then at the organization level, the top level, the business level, they do it in a much bigger way. They will not talk about, oh, how many refrigerators, how many washing, they'll just say washing machine. What model is this at S&OP level? They'll talk about the broad family as a whole. Now, demand management, as I said to you, is a process of ensuring that the demand and company's capabilities are in sync. Recognizing all demands for product and services to support the marketplace, you need to prioritize the demand. Obviously, all of us know very well in our day-to-day life, we have limited resources and we have to make best use of it around. I know we can outsource a lot. I'm not questioning that part around. Even in spite of that, we have limited resources around. Then the next comes the planning and using the resources. Changes in demand impacts production scheduling, inventory levels. But one thing one has to keep an eye on, if I'm looking at a supply chain, and the moment I have moved already from sourcing, I place an order to the supplier. I'm done starting with the plan, then come my sourcing. So when I'm doing sourcing, and suddenly I get the information, guys, the planning team says, guys, we're changing the plan. Don't just react, but you have to predict. I mean, variability is there, I can understand that now. And today's world, much more than it used to be 3 decades back or 2 decades back. Now every product is changing. So you have to preempt this. Don't act only when the problem, don't react, but preempt, I would call it. Preempt means you have to plan properly. Let's try to understand the whole overview of demand management. I'm giving more focus on demand because that is the main driving thing. The customers, they're obviously giving you inputs. Demand planning is coming. Sales and marketing, people are giving you some information. Distribution replenishment data are coming around. Interplant demands, you might have 100 plants or 20 plants worldwide. So one plant to another plant, there may be demand for that also. New product developments. All that input is coming to you. Now you guys have to make, within the demand management, to think of priorities. And that input from demand management is going to S&OP and is also going to master scheduling. Now, other side, if you look around from the supply side, you have manufacturers, maintenance schedules around, development part is there, design is there, sourcing is there. And then based on sourcing, you're making a rough cut capacity planning. If you think of a company like Apple or someone who are not doing themselves manufacturing, they're basically outsourcing. So their focus is more on design and outsourcing. Obviously, design is done by them, the development is done by them, it's outsourcing. Then they try to work it out what is their rough capacity. Are the rough capacities based on sourcing, the people with whom they're working, with the suppliers with whom they're working, what is the capacity to make it? On the top of it, at the strategic level, we have the business plan. So you have at the top level the strategic plans at a very broad level, and accordingly the financial budgets are available around. So whatever you guys do at S&OP level has to be in sync with business plan. That's a very key word around sync with business plan. Now the role of forecasting, as we have seen when we talk about demand planning, the demand forecasting is important. So the demand forecast forms the basis of all planning decisions in supply chain. As all of you know, there are 2 types of supply chain, the push type and the pull type. So push system means I have already planned that I'm going to sell this much. I remember my time when I started my career with Tata's. We used to get ready-made plan, maybe once in 3 months, 6 months. We'll just discuss, nothing more than that. So we used to work with the push concept. Guys, just make it. Plan the inventory for this, plan the raw material for this, plan the sourcing for this, plan the production. All scheduling used to be done based on that. And obviously, when we're doing scheduling that way, we used to plan a bigger batches around. So possibly that could give us cost effectiveness. So we have anticipated demand and we produce based on that. Now, in the case of pull system, we have the plan, and based on the plan, I made a set capacity. This year, I'm going to make 2 million pieces. I have set the capacity. And component availabilities also have been planned. But as the demand comes, I deliver them. So that's how it works around. Now, the time horizons, if I look around, the short term, medium term, and long term. But keep in mind the forecasting, if it is for the long term, errors are much more. Obviously, you and me have to predict our own personal career for next 1 year, next 2 years, 10 years. Possibilities or errors are much more. Even if we design best our own plans, our personal life design also, if we plan, errors are going to be happening. But we can only plan for 6 months, 1 year with much more accuracy. So same thing happen with, if the shorter the horizon, I can do a better forecast. Longer the horizons, but one can't help it. One has to make a long-term plan. If you make it only short-term forecast, and some of the equipment, if I have to buy the capital equipment, they can't come overnight. So you have to do long-term followed by short-term as well. Let's look at the forecasting, inputs and outputs. What type of inputs we need around? Current customers, new customers, competitions, what is happening around? All of you know the Porter's 5 forces around, competitions, economy. How is the economy doing? Our GDP is going well, great, good idea. That means everything will move faster. New products, pricing, the bids, promotions, management directives, history, and others. So this all inputs goes to them, and we are getting forecasts that are reasonable, realistic, reviewed, represent demand. So again, my point is saying around is the process is not just looking at the last year data or 6 month back data and plus 10% addition. That days are gone. Coming back to the methods of forecasting. One is called qualitative, one is called quantitative. As the name indicate, qualitative, very judgmental. Somebody is expert, people sit together. Oh, my opinion is this much. Very subjective, human judgments, little historical data available, and new products. Time series, which is again quantitative. Easy to implement. I've got historical data in a graphical format. Causal. Causal means I know the cause and effect. If this happens, this is going to be the impact. If 50% of my component, I'm in an automobile product or in a mobile phone, 50% of my products are coming from abroad, and the custom duty goes up by from 5% to 20%, it's going to affect it. So that means that component is a cause. And the effect of that, I could develop a relationship y is equal to a plus bx. So that y is depending on a particular parameter, one parameter, it could be 10 parameters. I could develop the regression concepts around. Then I could simulate also. So same thing I've tried to put again broadly under the subjective and objective. All quantitative thing is objective. Time series is objective. Causal and relational thing, regression is all objective. Judgmental is all about Delphi's, and I set a set of experts around, put them together, guys, can you give me your ideas around? I just get the consensus among them. I think, oh guys, this is great. Experimental, I could do simulations, I could do surveys, I could do many things around. So same thing I have tried to put under subjective and objective, or you could subjective, and the other one is quantitative and qualitative. Subjective is basically qualitative and the other one is quantitative. The characteristic of a forecast. The very key characteristic is always wrong. It's not like a crystal ball will give you everything correct. Errors, and our job in S&OP is to cut down the error. Variability from the expected values. Long-term forecasts are usually less accurate than the short-term. And there are some products which are mature products with stable demand are easier to forecast than the seasonal goods or fashion items which are having a short life. Some of the consumer item has product life is very short, 6 months, 8 months, new model comes in. In those situations, variability is much more volatile. The principles of forecasting, if I look around, first principle is rarely perfect. And they are more accurate for group data than for individual item. If you group them together, don't go around, okay, I'm in the air conditioner business, should I go with 1 ton, 1.5 ton? No, you club them together and do the forecast. Now, example which I'm giving you more from manufacturing, but service industry also, you know very well, the service industry also has got their own supply chain. Although the supply chain of service industry is a little different than when I'm talking about transportations, whether I'm talking about IT business, whether I'm talking about ticketing, whichever business or banking, they're also having a supply chain. So there also we could think of these ideas around. Now forecasts are more accurate for shorter than long-term period. Now the factors which are affecting the demand forecast. And one of the questions somebody has also raised it already in advance. These factors has to be reviewed, not just the historical data, type of economies. If I'm based in a country, my client is based in a country which is totally centralized economy, the government decides what can come in, what cannot come in. The tariffs are decided based on that. That could affect the whole business. Business cycles and trends. You know, every business goes through up and down. There are peaks and valleys. Keep in mind, if today you are on the peak, someday valley could also come in. I still have to see when you're getting a peak through and through. Maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but then peak comes in. So one has to see where does it stand. Some of the products, smartest product around, when 10 years, they are totally gone. New technology comes in. Even the technology trend, if I look around the blockchain, the way it is coming around, in the future, people say the ledger will be also blockchain. Bookkeeping would be in blockchain. Many of the activities will move through the blockchain. So that would change the whole concepts around. Economic indicators, the lagging indicators, the leading indicators, I have to see around. How is the employment going on? How other factors are going around? Government policies to support the industries. That goes a long way. Political stability. More than anything else, I would say political stability. If nobody is sure whether this government will survive for a long or not, you can't expect miracle though. Your forecast could get totally affected. The market part, if I look around, the markets has got 5 forces. As you know, the Porter's 5 forces. Competitions, SWOT analysis, your own SWOT around, your strength, weakness, and opportunity, and of your competitor as well, your supplier as well. If I'm totally depending on outsourcing, I'm totally horizontal integrated company, not the vertically integrated one. Because my strength in today's supply chain, the good old days are gone when it used to be vertically integrated. Procurement supply chain was not so visible. The day today we have become horizontal integrated, my flow of goods are coming from different part of the world. In that situation, being horizontal integrated, SWOT is very important to me. SWOT are mine and my suppliers. If my suppliers are the one, not the innovative suppliers, I could be left behind. Supply market complexities, opportunity assessments, and what sourcing strategy I'm following around. So when we talk of complexity, sourcing strategy also there around. Either it's a leverage item, is it a strategic item, is it a bottleneck item, is it a routine item? So that could also affect your things around and the product life cycle around. the product which I'm trying to put my whole forecast, what stage it is. You know, every product has got 5 stages around, like human bodies. Somebody is a kid, then infant will become a young guy, the young becomes. Same way for the product also, you have a design, like a baby, then you're introducing that into the market, the growth is less, but then suddenly the growth comes, then maturity, but after maturity, people get fed up. There's a decline. So one has to accept, as it happened with the human body, same with the product, also it happens around. Technology, technology, technology. And that is becoming the biggest disruptor in your forecast around. So you have to keep in mind what is going to change. Technology could be, as we are seeing around, LED lamps. And nobody buys old lamps around. So technology has changed the whole forecast of the old lamps. Influences on the customer demand. Obviously, you're looking at the historical patterns, externality, the weather, the state of economy, the internal factors, and competitors' actions. What are your competitors doing around? You might be today the best of the world, but how are your competitors doing with that? Are they moving faster than you? And the basic approach to demand forecasting, I would say, first is understanding the objective of forecasting. Integrate the demand planning and forecasting together. Identify the major factors that influence your demand forecast. It could be seasonality also. You know very well when the season comes, whether it's a festive seasons or non-festive seasons, the demand could go up and then down. If you're improving your capacity to match with the season, then you'll find more inventory during the down season time. Understand the identity, identify the customer segments. So you have a wide range of customers, you have to identify them. Which one to focus? Which are the long-term benefits to me? That B2B concept orchestration has to be done. Geographical location, product life cycles, but still keep in mind no forecast is perfect, but we have to improve upon it. That's what we're looking at. Accuracy forecast. This question I always ask wherever I work with many other companies who are doing an S&OP. I say, can you tell me your forecast accuracy around? Some are not able to tell me because they feel bad, but ultimately this is the starting point when we work with them. Accuracy should be the priority. Organizations begin by looking at demand for the current period and compare with the previous month or months to determine the accuracies. If all the months I'm failing by 40%, 50%, then something is wrong. Predict demand is used to predict future demand. Then it is important because it leads to customer satisfaction. If I've done a wonderful planning, my forecast is good, my customer is satisfied, my inventory level is reasonable. Obviously, with all this, my bottom line of the company is better. Track accuracy and make changes on a continuous basis. It's a learning curve, but this is important. If you're doing on a regular basis, then you learn the lesson, and next time you do better. Managing the supply. So far we covered the demand part, which is a major chunk I would call. Now come to the supply side. Supply side, obviously, I want to make no inventory at all because that is again, as per my KPI, if I'm in the production, I want to have least inventories around. Production matches with demand. But if I start matching it, the situation could also happen. My capacity is underutilized when the low demand periods period. During the seasons, it goes well, but when it's a non-season, I could have underutilized capacity. My staff is free, not being used fully. Level production, stable production guide, this is what I'm going to make 40,000 pieces. That's all. Sometimes if you're selling more, there is a high capacity utilizations. Personal management is easier. But if I'm changing my capacity up and down, I know many of the companies using contract labor to cater for this now. Managing the capacity. Now, when we talk about capacities, supply was very easier. I could outsource it around. But capacity means I'm looking within in-house, my people, my equipment, my machinery. And if I'm in a service business, if I'm taking more business, but whether my team can manage that. I've taken so many consulting work, but I don't have a right team. Time flexibility from workforce, seasons, temporary workforce, subcontracting. Can I, if instead of augmenting my capacity, can I subcontract it? I remember one company's, again a manufacturing company, that a limitation on making some parts as a support to the maintenance. So they outsourced it. So it was able to cope with that. Same thing you could do in services as well, where I could outsource. I won't call subcontract, I'll say outsource around. Designing product flexibilities around, managing inventories. Use common components across multiple products. I might have multiple range of products. There are many items which are common. Aggregate demands more stable, less obsolescence risk, build inventory on high demand, a predictable demand item, delay production of fashion item until they are closer to selling season. Because if I start planning for session for Christmas now or Diwali now, enough time is there. I start planning now, but if 2 months before the season, the demand may go down or demand may go up. So you have to think of delay the productions around. Broadly, I would say there are 5 steps when we talk of S&OP. The very step 1 is collecting the data. Supply, marketing input, sales actual, the whole data is gathered around. Step 2 comes the demand planning. And the demand planning becomes my whole complete forecast, and then it goes to the supply planning. If I'm heading the supply side, I try to see these guys are asking for big things. Am I able to cope up? My suppliers, can they cope up? Can the production also cope up? What are the constraints around? So I'll try to come up with the capacity and material constraints around. Now, obviously, there are trade-off is required. Demand is giving big ideas around. I have my limitations. Then the pre-S&OP meeting, where all the heads of the department of supply, marketing, design, everybody sits together. They try to resolve the conflict. Right? Okay, this problem we can solve this way. We can give you more funds to buy more equipment around. We can give you more resources around. So that means the whole conflict resolutions, recommendations is prepared there. If you feel this is the final aggregate plans, and these are the limitations, these are the constraints, okay, this is the way. Now, ultimately, the game plan ends when these decisions are supported by the top management. If top management is not supporting it, it will not work. So the decision and the game plan, and then it comes back to them. In a simple version, if I want to talk around week 1, I look at the sales review, previous period review, the market intelligence, demand shaping, forecasts and orders, finished goods. And then I took the supply review. I look at the previous period review, availability of material. Do I have the material? Supplier capacity, if my suppliers can provide or not. Lead time. Now, if you're coming around, this customer wants within 1 week, but if my suppliers cannot do it, I can't. So you have to come with the constraints on capacity, the raw material, inventory plan, whatever. Now, this information goes for issues for resolution. So they are also, sales is giving their own issues for resolution. Supply people are giving their own issues for resolution, but supply review is based on sales review. Now, operation people who are doing the production side, manufacturing side, previous period reviews, supply provisions, because operation also depends on supply. Some of the partially made components come from the supply side, and then they make a finished touch, and they may be only assembling it. So work in progress, inventory plan, issues for resolution. So all of them are giving issues for resolutions. So you go to the pre-executive meeting and then finally go to the executive meeting. So this is the broadly I would call around the standard process. Now here I'm trying to show you there are 3 levels: strategic level, tactical level, operational level. So the business plan is at the strategic level. All the in between is technical level, and the operational level we're looking at the schedules. Now, this is another issue around S&OP and supply chain. SOP is not just a standalone. What we prefer is if this is and involve all the key functions. That means S&OP is not a central planning function. Guys, I got a big high-level person having 4, 5, 6 people. They just put together a meeting once a month. And that meeting, once they resolve, it goes to the top man, CEOs approves it, funds are. I think this team also has to look into it, all the key functions. Has to look at the sales, has to look into distribution, has to look into manufacturing, and of course, procurement. So the supply chain, which you have the 4 components, so the planning is the first component. If you know the score model, the score model starts with 5 components. First is plan, second is source, third is make. Whether you make in-house or get it made from outside, and the next is logistics. And then logistic means going to the clients, and the finally is coming back to you in case there's a reverse logistics. So those, during the whole chain, it is connected around. And that's where we call as an integrated supply chain. When we talk of effective S&OP, effective, when I say that means less error, forecast errors. If my plans are only error of 8 or 10%, I'm very effective. So what we look around is a controlled, systematically controlled, aligned with the business plan, and is agile, is responsive, proactive, it's not reactive, and strategic. So these components are important. The control is the top point around, I would say. Now the benefits you're seeing around is links business plan to department operation. I'm in production, my plans are linked into it. I'm in marketing, my plans are there around, sales plans are there around, business plans are there around, finance plans are there around, all department plan, which by nature we are silos. When I see go back to 70s and 80s, everything was silos. But today we are connecting them together, improving the communication among them. So provides a mean for work to work in a common goal, eliminates the counterproductive hidden agendas around, I would say. Greater visibility of demand and supply across the company, improved product life cycle, better communications, more predictable revenue management around. So this gives you again broadly the same thing step by step. Coming back to the S&OP planning levels, the very first is strategic planning level, second is tactical planning, and detailed planning. Detailed planning is obviously at the lowest end, lowest risk, and strategic means you're doing at a much higher level for longer durations. The risks are much bigger. If we talk about the approaches, when we talk about S&OP, the approach could be the one could be that come from the top to bottom. Guys, okay, the top guy has approved it, go ahead, do it. It's a top-down plan. But some places where it's a fashion product, changes are too fast. The whole mix is unstable. I think then bottom-up planning can also work around. I know most of the cases which I have seen around, still it works on a top-down planning, but maybe in a very extreme cases where the product life cycle is very short, bottom-up planning could work. Now, meeting frequencies, as I said to you, stakeholders typically meet at the beginning of the fiscal year to develop the plan. It is followed by monthly or more frequently if necessary to make needed adjustment. Broadly, we call monthly, but it could be more frequently if needed. If your company is operating in just-in-time or faces unpredictable demand, it could be even weekly. So you're not really stuck with 1 month. It could be weekly or even daily if you feel that problems are there, if you're working in a GIT concept around. So the meetings use a planning horizon of 6 to 18 months. Because you have to plan the equipment, you have to plan the raw material, you have to plan the long-term agreement. So you have to make a planning horizon of 6 to 18 months. The best practices, if I look around, link the key processes. Let them work in their own separate system as long as they are linked together. But then let them get validated. Initially, obviously, each one is doing their own sales forecasting, production planning, capacity planning. They might be doing in their own separate system. One is using MRP, one is using this. But all of them need to be connected, validated, and approved sales forecast. So once I get the approved one, that becomes my starting point for my I would say supply chain. Executive ownership of the SOP. S&OP is a major business process that manages the balance and trade-off between the conflicting preferences. I might be having conflicting preference. Should I go with this product much more, or should I go less of this? Should I change the customer's lead time? All that thing is done there. Review the external influence, certainly very, very important. You cannot close your eyes and looking at only your own within the brick wall, your own past data. No. Today is in a global world. What happens in X country could affect your. From where you get the raw material could affect your business. Because now you see many countries around. Now we're talking of balance of trade. In some countries, we were buying earlier, but now the balance of trade is not favorable. The custom duty changes. So all that factors makes big difference. And then justification for additional capacities, tooling of idle capacities, outsourcing, all these factors you need to look into it to make it best practice. How to know if S&OP is successful? The broad thing people say, guys, we spend so much money buying software, buying this, buying that. Main thing is your KPIs is saying high stock fill rates, low stock out rates, good inventory turnovers, high sell-through, timely execution of inventory flows from the factory to the distribution. So these are the parameters will tell you these KPIs, guys, your S&OP is doing well. Now S&OP also, like in anything around, like in procurement also we got a maturity model, supply chain also we got a maturity model, S&OP also has got a maturity model, and this concept comes from IT business. You know, everybody talks about CMMI, 5 levels around. Here I'm only showing 3. So the level 1 maturity is monthly review once, that's all. So to me, that is purely a religious meeting once a month. Guys, okay, give me your supplies. Tell me what is the demand. Both shake hands. Yes, sir, we will do everything. That's a very low level of maturity. Maturity 2 is coming collaborative. You all stakeholders work together, combine, aggregate plans. Supply planning, new product introductions. Then executive S&OP, that means at the top level is approved, performance management is looked around, financial planning is also done. It is not just the supply and demand. What is the impact on the finances, sir? The finance planning is also very important. Most of the cases I've seen, finance is not even looked. They say, guys, let's plan our own thing. The success factor, if I look around, the key critical success factors, CSF, top management involvement is a must. Ongoing routine S&OP meetings, structured meeting with agendas, cross-functional participation. I know some people have told me, sir, these are very boring meetings, but this has to be there. I know some of you who are participating are from S&OP. Participants empowered to take decisions. Internal collaborative process around, measurement of process around. Measurement, I'm looking at what is the outcome at the end of the forecast accuracy, the standard deviation, how much it is coming around. Can I improve it? How to improve it? And supported by integrated supply demand planning. Now, the whole S&OP is evolving now. Since it started in 1980s, I mean, time has come to evolve. So far, it was all inside out. That means we were only looking within our 4 walls. We were making the decisions. We were not bothered about what suppliers can do or not. Now we're looking at network focus outside in. We're also getting the input from suppliers itself. So that means the suppliers who are part of the chain, of the supply chain, they are also providing me the inputs. So they're also connected, integrated. Some people call extended S&OP, ES&OP. E stands for extended sales and operational planning. And somebody may call integrated. So that means I'm basically looking outside in. Outside ideas are also coming in. And I think it makes sense in today's supply chain when it becomes totally horizontally integrated. In the good old days when it was vertically integrated, I was going with the inside out. But today it is outside in because of the horizontal part. So keep in mind that it's a market driven, demand driven. Earlier it was driven by manufacturing, today not. The KPIs of S&OP process, if I look for the score model, forecast accuracy has to be seen, production plan adherence has to be seen, inventory plan and supply, financial forecast accuracy is around. Challenges which we have in implementation is difficulty to get the right data in the timely fashion. That is the biggest problem, and lack of support from the top. I think these two big things I will talk around. Common difficulties which we have: sudden change in supply and demand, lack of executive support, inadequate engagement between the department, people don't even meet together, focusing on a single target number, what number has been given to the top ones, and we just stick to that. Lack of documentation, operational changes, an SOP leader who does not act as a necessary profit center manager. Because many S&OP leaders, their job is just to coordinate as a good negotiator. But they have to work as a profit center manager. That mindset has to change. So once they change the mindset, then I think the outcome will come much better. Executive fail to understand the supply chain complexity, translating the planning process to effective execution. Well, friend, with this, I want to thank you all for the patient hearing, and thanks again.